Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, joining you this morning at 8 a.m, the morning after Arsenal have beaten Aston Villa 2-1. And of course, a big welcome to those joining us on deadline day as well. We would usually be doing the Arsenal transfer show, and I'm probably going to do an Arsenal transfer show a little bit later on this afternoon before I start my late shift of the evening. I'm going to be working a 4:12 shift tonight, covering all things transfers for Football.London. So there'll probably be an afternoon Arsenal transfer show to encompass even more kind of listeners across the world. Of course, it's much easier in the afternoon for timings for people in the West in particular. But interestingly, we've got plenty to talk about after Arsenal's win yesterday. But first things first, good morning, everybody joining us in the chat box. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're well. Morning, Kaiser and Olu and Ian, Temi and NSW, Perez and Marcus and Akshat. Good morning, guys. Hope you're good. Just want to double check that I haven't missed anyone. I mean, Matt G, Frankie and Blackshine and Paul and CT, again, dropping in there first, but StreamYard not doing them the justice for some reason, not giving them that the credit of getting in there first, as always. Streaming is weird. I don't know why it's not working, but it is. Let's jump into the usual admin. Good morning, and do check out the this week's prize, of course, which runs out on the 6th of September. You can win a hospitality ticket to go and see Arsenal against PSV in the Europa League on the Thursday, the 15th of September. 8 p.m. kickoff time. Make sure you, of course, check travel details before entering the competition. There's plenty of instant win prizes in this as well. You could win a Tony Adams signed shirt and signed and custom framed Arsenal shirt, an Alexander Zinchenko signed Arsenal shirt, Ben White signed and framed Emirates Stadium street sign, the back four of the George Graham era signed and framed Arsenal montage, a home, away or third kit, and plenty of more credit prizes as well. Link in the description. We'll be live tomorrow evening. So if you are free tomorrow evening in North London, do come and join us at the Ridley Road Social Club. I'll be there with FK and Harry Simeon and Sophie Nicolau and James Benge, along with some other guests as well, I'm sure. Or more than half the tickets, I believe, have now been sold. So if you do want to get there, they are selling out. So do not miss your opportunity. Hopefully we'll see plenty of you at the show tomorrow evening in North London. Looking forward to that one. And lastly, if you haven't already voted for us, please vote for us at just go www.votefortgt.com. Tag us on Instagram on their relevant post on the Football Content Awards Instagram page with that picture you can see on the screen, or you can vote on their website. I think voting closes tomorrow for nominations, so not long left if you haven't already voted. So let's talk about yesterday's game. We bite back is the way in which I've titled this card. I think that one of the key things about Arsenal sides of old is when they have conceded, heads have dropped, confidence has been burned, and they've gone on to either drop points, lose games, or ultimately peter out their performances without too much firepower. However, this season seems different. Not just this season, but of course, I think the end of last season as well. We still managed to get back, not even just the end of last season, but certainly throughout last season too. At times where it looked like we were facing adversity, at times where we had conceded. Look, I really do think that there is something different about this team, and going on and scoring so soon after conceding what was a very unfortunate goal directly from a corner from Douglas Luiz, again, I think is a credit to what this team is building, what is being changed, of course, by Mikel Arteta. And it was an absolutely brilliant win in the end. Villa were out to kick us all day, and they managed to succeed in that because Martin Odegaard went off with a bad kick to his ankle. It just seems like now we're getting to that stage again where Arsenal are playing such good football, frustrating teams so much that they are having to resort to just kicking our players. The highlight for me, though, was Sambi Lokonga. I thought he really, really was solid. He played really well at the base of the midfield. There was a suggestion that potentially Xhaka would operate there and Lokonga would move forward into kind of the left 8 role. But Lokonga was excellent. Great passing, great progression, really solid positioning, good kind of recovery turnovers as well. And whilst, I still think we need to sign somebody in the midfield, it is reassuring to know that Sambi can do it at this level. If you actually remember to last season when we played Aston Villa at home, Lokonga played in that game as well and had one of his best performances of the season at home to Aston Villa. So it's not like this should come as any kind of surprise, although that there was a drop in the second half, I think, not just from Lokonga, but from most players, to be honest. as the performance did dip with Aston Villa reacting at half-time. I thought his first half was absolutely brilliant, and he was a bit of, as Marcus puts here, a bit of an unsung hero of the day. So really looking forward to seeing what more we can see from him. He might have to play at the weekend. Who knows? We'll see what happens in regards to the transfer window. And even if a signing comes in, whether or not they'd be ready for the game against Manchester United. But I would imagine that Lokonga will play that game at Old Trafford, and we'll be hoping to see a big performance from him once again. Poor Emi Martinez, not sure he's going to be talking about this too comfortably in any kind of future. As we know, the running joke being Emi Martinez could not stop talking about Arsenal at all. And after last night's horror show in the, I think it was a deflected cross from Martinelli that he could not hold on to, and Jesus' shot even then went straight kind of at him, and he still couldn't deal with it or stop it. Look, for me, Emi Martinez was a good goalkeeper at Arsenal. Potentially, we were wrong to let him go early enough as we did. But I think now in Aaron Ramsdale, we've got a goalkeeper that I'm very happy with. I know that a lot of people kind of pointed the finger a bit at him at our goal that we conceded, Aaron Ramsdale. I personally thought he was being fouled in the box, and potentially also what we've seen regarding a player like at the front post, why that isn't commonplace anymore, is a bit of a strange one. So I don't know why there's not a front post player anymore. I know we have all the zonal marking, but when you consider what just happened against Villa, maybe we'll think twice again about doing that. But yes, interesting indeed that Gabriel Jesus scoring once again and having a big performance. And he and Gabriel Martinelli, I thought, ran the show for Arsenal. It was, of course, between the two of them as to who would have won the Man of the Match award. For me, you know, Jesus' impact on this team is just immeasurable at this stage. I mean, it's measurable in the sense that you can know there's improvement, but how much improvement there is based upon, you know, just Jesus' presence in this team is unbelievably different. Like the movement, the speed, the positioning, the clinical finishing, you know, the timing of his runs, the strength. And, you know, Tyrone Mings is no slouch in regards to physicality. And Gabby just made him look like a little baby. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, he was just getting in behind him, holding him off. There was a piece of play on the right-hand side where he just won the ball away from Tyrone Mings so easily. I don't know if it's kind of his frame being so low that he can kind of maneuver himself into these really tight spaces, and that just throws off the bigger, more physical defenders. But he's just so good at winning the ball in those scenarios. He has no right to win some of the headers that he wins. He just doesn't give up. And that is the character that we need as a number 9, someone that can move, someone that can win tackles, win duels, but ultimately finish and score big goals in big games, in big moments. And we've got some big tests coming up. And I can't wait to see what Gabriel Jesus can do at Old Trafford. I'm looking forward to hopefully potentially being there on Sunday. And he is going to be certainly one that I think Man United fans and Man United players and their coach in particular are going to have to be trying to focus on stopping as you know, feasibly possible. And to be fair, you know, Martinez going up against Jesus is an interesting one because look, we're not going to be crossing the ball into the box as teams have done. And you know, Martinez, when he's gone up against teams that play with the ball on the floor, has done quite well so far for Man United. So Jesus will come up against a very decent test, very good test indeed, in the form of Varane and Martinez when we go to Old Trafford. How we deal with that and how they deal with it could be one of the most telling battles in that game. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the pair react. Martin Odegaard, again, in the first half in particular, was gloriously good. The passing, the vision, the movement, the way in which he just keeps this game ticking. And then in the second half, he unfortunately took a hit. Now, after the game, Mikel Arteta was asked about this. He said he got a bad kick and he was struggling. It was very recent, so we'll have to see over the next few hours how he recovers. I hope and pray and will his fitness into existence for Sunday, because without Martin Odegaard at Man United, I will be very, very worried about how we can kind of find our rhythm and flow, because he will be absolutely crucial to the way that we play. In his stead, we would usually, in my view, probably bring in someone like Fabio Vieira. The reason why Fabio Vieira has not got his debut, and I know there's a lot of people on socials last night, especially in chat boxes and Discord servers, going, why isn't Fabio being given a chance? The last 2 games that Arsenal have played have obviously been on a bit of a knife edge. You know, we've managed to win the games in the end with dominant displays, but not exactly with the most dominant of scorelines. 2-1 victories, not really opportunities to bed in a brand new player into a brand new league. not worth the risk. I think Fabio Vieira will, of course, play in the game against Zurich in the Europa League, and that will be the opportunity to kind of bed Fabio Vieira into the team. And it's not about not trusting the player. It's about ensuring that you get the right introduction. When a player has had no preseason whatsoever, you need to make sure that they are entered into the fray with as comfortable a process as possible. We haven't been forced into using Vieira. That's the benefit of having a lot of strength in depth in an attacking midfield sense. When we've got the amount of players that we do, we haven't had to be forced into using him, and that's why we can bring on Smith Rowe and Nketiah should we need to. I mean, even Marquinhos has had a bigger kind of, pre-season than what Fabio Vieira has. So the Europa League group stage games are going to be used, in my view, to give Fabio Vieira that opportunity. And I look forward to seeing, of course, what he could bring to the side. And that's going to be absolutely key moving forwards for us. But Odegaard's injury hopefully isn't going to be too bad, but we don't know the full extent of it. It might be that he's fit for the game on Sunday. It might be that he can't do it and we need to rest him. It was an impact injury. It wasn't kind of a muscular problem or a hamstring problem or a ligament problem. It was, from the looks of things, an impact that was causing him pain. So hopefully that means it's only short term and we won't have to worry about it too much. Going on then to transfers and deadline day. We'll go into your questions. If you've got comments about last night's game, we'll do that in part 2, of course. But going through the usual transfer stuff for the morning, I don't know if you've seen this, but a video going around on social media yesterday, fans catching Edu leaving the game, asking him to sign Tielemans. Very Arsenal, very deadline day indeed. And I just hopefully I just want to see some real strong business done by Edu and Arsenal today. We know what we need. We know what's necessary. We know what opportunity we have this season. And if we don't do the business that we need to do today, I will be disappointed because, we've had all summer to try and get certain deals done. Yes, there seems to be some kind of financial pressure on the club, it appears, because they don't seem keen on overspending or just, dropping the big money on players like Pedro Neto. This, for me, is crucial that we get at least one player in. One of the potential players will not unlikely be a wide player. And Mikel Arteta actually responded to questions regarding deadline day. He says about injuries affecting deadline day's plans. He says, obviously, it has an impact because Thomas is injured and we are a bit short in that position. We have Sambi and Granit that can play there, but we are looking at options in the market. The club has been super supportive to keep improving the squad and the team as we can. And if the right player is available and we can do it, we will try. He was also asked on whether there's not much money left in the bank, and he replied saying, I'm not a financial guy. I think that's a question for somebody else. He was then asked a little bit further on kind of transfers and stuff, and basically talked about the fact that, again, that we're still short and that we're hoping to do stuff. And that was it, basically. He wasn't really pressed too hard on transfers, which after a game is unsurprising. But yeah, I just hope that we can find something today. It needs to be something. Who it won't be, though, is Ainsley, Maitland Niles and Bellerin, as they are set to leave the club today. Maitland Niles is set to join Southampton. That will be announced very soon. Bellerin is expected to move. Negotiations over the termination of his contract continue to go on. Barcelona appear to be the most likely destination. Otherwise, Arsenal are going to have to end up paying him 5 million quid's worth of wages across the next season, unless he leaves, of course, in January. But there's no expectation that either of these two will be at the club come the end of the deadline. But Bellerin is the most risky one who could, of the two, still be here come that end of the window. Mudryk is unlikely to be a player that will be arriving at Arsenal today. It does seem as though that the injuries to midfield have shifted Arsenal's attention into that area. It never really seemed likely that two players could be brought in this close to the end of the window. A wide player just doesn't seem to be feasible financially for the club. Now they want to sign a midfielder. Had we not have had these injuries to Partey and El Neni coming up so quickly, I imagine that the wide area would have continued to be, a priority, which is frustrating because considering we've allowed Nicolas Pepe to leave on loan and then just days later we lose both Partey and El Neni in the space of 2 days. It's mad, I really kind of get frustrated around the unluckiness that we have. And I know people kind of suggest, well, in terms of Partey's injury history, of course, that's always been there and we should be prepared for it. But Elneny's never faced injury issues, barely at all. Like, we've never had to worry about him. So losing two of our starting options in that deep midfield position in the space of 48 hours is ridiculously bad luck. And then on top of that, you've lost Alexander Zinchenko, who can also play in a deep midfield position if you need him to, is ridiculous. So I think that has, of course, overhyped. I'm just going to get rid of someone who's being, let's be honest, disrespectful in the chat box. In regards to where was I before I lost my head? Yeah, Elneny, Partey, Zinchenko, all gone in the space of that amount of time has shifted our focus. And if we don't sign a wide player, I'll be very frustrated. But I will understand that the priority had to shift towards the middle. And I think that the fact that a midfielder now becomes so key, and I think as we always have known, the midfield has always been kind of that one key area that we wanted to see strengthening in throughout the entire of this window and the last summer window as well, that it does make sense that we would move for one. Who that might be, Douglas Luiz looks potentially to be one of those players. This is a story that came out in the last kind of 12, 18 hours or so after the game. Steven Gerrard could not comment on the player's future. He was the one, of course, that scored that really kind of strange goal going straight in off a corner. Very strange indeed. And I mean, Walef here says, what do you think of Villa's Douglas Luiz? This would be a good move for Arsenal. You know, Premier League experienced, versatile in terms of his ability to play out in a deep position. I would be very keen on Douglas Luiz. Brazilian, of course, so you've got that chemistry coming in with the existing Brazilian guys. I really, really would be open to this move. And I think, you know, his age is good. The amount of big teams that are still interested, like Chelsea, Manchester United, and Atletico Madrid, show the guy's quality in itself as well. If this was a guy that we brought in on deadline day, I think it'd be a really good signing. And 20 million quid is a very good move. If we do end up signing, of course, I'll bring you a tactical breakdown as soon as possible on him. But I think to compete with the players that we've got in the squad, Premier League experience, Premier League quality, we'll see what happens. Although, saying that, there's quite a big split, it seems, in the chat box. Daniel says he's not good enough. Let's go to who else on this, kind of getting reaction from it. Bashka says, I like Douglas Luiz. Nashville says he reckons he's going to Liverpool. Reese says Luiz didn't even celebrate that much last night. Oso says Luiz for 15 million for Europa League games and squad depth, limited role, ready to be understudy to push Partey, potentially. You know, he was genuinely such a highly rated player a year ago. I don't know why why people's opinions of him have fallen off a cliff so quickly. But I like him a lot, and I think he's a very good player. Dave says Luiz couldn't even start for Villa. There's a reason for that, Dave. You know, this current situation with the contract is a little bit frenetic right now, it's fair to say, and that's one of the big reasons as to why. Oso says Luiz has that Premier League experience. Lawrence, though, no, not Douglas Luiz. Goku says Douglas Luiz would be a crazy good deal with a year left. And this is the split. It's very interesting indeed seeing so many kind of contrasting views on this view. You know, for me, a Premier League experienced guy on deadline day to give us that option when it's going to be very difficult to find someone a level better than him, I think would be personally a good move, especially for around 15, 20 million quid. I think that would be a really solid deal for Arsenal to get done. Danilo is the obvious other target that we're looking at in potentially a midfield role. He looks a lot more to me kind of like a midfielder that Arteta would go for. Progressive, good dribbler, good passer. Again, Brazilian, got that link. Another young player, 21 years of age. I really think that this, as kind of with Luiz, either of these two would be very good deals for Arsenal to get done on deadline day. I think Danilo's deal is very, very difficult. It would be more expensive, ironically, it seems, than Douglas Luiz's deal. Palmeiras have no intention to sell. They don't need to sell. They can't buy a replacement because their transfer window isn't open and they're in the semi-final of the Copa Libertadores. So the pressure is on them from their fans and from those around the club inside it to not sell Danilo. Arsenal are said to be in discussions. No bid has been made at this point thus far, despite some suggestions that Arsenal had made a £20 million bid. Supposedly that's not the case, but discussions between Arsenal and Palmeiras have supposedly taken place. But it's a very, very, very difficult deal to do. You could get a medical done in Brazil, so in terms of travel, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. You could sign all of the details as long as they're sent over before the deadline. It could be done. It does seem very, very tricky, though. Very, very tricky. So if a deal was to be done on deadline day, I feel as though a Douglas Luiz deal would be more realistic. than potentially Danilo. Gunaway says, stop spinning, Tom. We aren't signing anyone. Well, I hope you're wrong, mate. I hope you're wrong. But it's a very realistic potential reality is that we don't sign anyone. We could sign between 0 and 2 players today, and not many of us know what's going to happen. If you remember, on deadline day of last season, Tomiyasu really came out of absolutely nowhere. So sometimes things can pop up. Fabio Vieira, as we already know, came out of absolutely nowhere as well. On deadline day, it's a crazy day. Things change very quickly. Let's wait and see what happens. I hope that you're wrong and we do end up signing somebody. If it's Danilo, if it's Douglas Luiz, I think either of those two would be good additions to the squad for the midfield. Hopefully something can happen between now and deadline, which is very late this evening. Let's go to part 2 and your questions after this very, very short break. So make sure you get involved with our latest competition, courtesy of Football Prizes. Link to this in the description. You can win a ticket to go to the Arsenal PSV game. 2 hospitality tickets are available on the 15th of September. Competition ends on Tuesday, the 6th of September at 7:30. There's lots of instant win prizes, including the likes of a signed Zinchenko shirt, a signed Tony Adams shirt, and plenty more. More information is in the video description. Join us for our live show tomorrow evening at the Ridley Road Social Club in North London. If you want to come along for a good chat with the likes of myself, James Benge, FK from Latte Firm, Harry Simeon from the Chronicles of Gooner, and Sophie Nicolau from the Hybrid Squad, as well as our host Mike from the Gooners Pod, then do join us tomorrow evening around 7:30. I think just over half tickets have now been sold. So do get involved. It should be a really good evening and a good chat about Arsenal. And lastly, do vote for us in the Football Content Awards. As always, voting closes tomorrow. So if you haven't already voted, go over to Twitter, go over to Instagram, go over to the website at Football Content Awards and get voting. If you just type in www.votefortgt.com, then you can get involved that way. Lovely stuff. Let's tackle some of your questions then for the last part of this morning's show. Reese says, Tom, would you rather not buy anyone now and get Bellingham next summer for 90 million? Yes, obviously I would rather do that, but there's no guarantee that that would happen. That's the catch-22 that we have. If you could said to me right now that there's a guarantee that we go out and sign a brilliant midfielder next summer, but if you sign someone now, that's not going to happen. As I've mentioned before, I would absolutely rather do that. I just feel as though this season, it feels opportunistic this year. It feels like there's a really big opportunity brewing for Arsenal. And if we don't sign somebody in midfield, it could be a really big worry for us. Oso says, do you reckon fans are being too harsh on Sambi? I thought he looked good. I haven't even seen criticism of Sambi. Is there genuinely people criticising Sambi's performance? He was great. He was really, really good. Lloyd says, do we need to sell more than Maitland Niles and Bellerin to bring someone in? No, it's not about selling players now. We've moved on the players and we needed to move on. We aren't going to make money. That's not going to happen. It's about whether we can get the right player in for the right price. That's what Arsenal are wanting to do today. They aren't willing to overpay for players. They aren't willing to push the boat out in terms of overpaying in terms of what they value a player to be. There was a rumor going around that they value Danilo at something like 90 million pounds. If Palmeiras asked for like 30 million pound plus, I'd be surprised if they went and did it. Who knows? Maybe the pressure and the timing of the deadline means that they would, but I'd be very surprised if they went and did that. Russ says, to Tom, if today was your birthday and you could complete one signing for any position, who would you go for? Birthday makes it sound like it's not realistic, Russ. Who would I sign? Oh, we've had a dip in connection. Sorry if I'm looking blurry on your screens. Who would I sign? If it was Jude Bellingham, of course, I think, as we just talked about. Unrealistic signing, Jude Bellingham. Realistic signing, I think, Danilo is a really good option for Arsenal to consider during this window. So if that's something that we can do, we should definitely go and do that with 100%. Without any questions asked, we should be going and looking at someone like him if we can get him done. Great move for the Gunners. Tim says, why do you think it's so easy to give us yellows for tactical fouls when the opponents in the same games get away with it time after time after time after time after time after time after time? I don't know, Tim, because we're Arsenal, and that's just kind of the way it goes for us, unfortunately. It's just the way that it goes. Let's go to Ojo, who says, please tell me we're signing Zaha. I cannot go through another window being linked to him again, only to amount to nothing. OJ, I can't tell you that we're signing Zaha, unfortunately. I can't give you any assurance that we're going to be signing Zaha. It was a player that was linked to us and Chelsea, but I just don't think it's going to happen for Arsenal or any club this summer regarding the Ivorian international. Oyatunji says Chelsea sign Aubameyang and expecting to sign Alvarez. I don't know if they are expecting to sign Alvarez. I was pretty sure I heard that Ajax had said no to any more sales. Maybe that will change. Let's be real. Chelsea need to sign someone. They could end up getting Aubameyang, of course. And by the way, I'm sure plenty of you have seen the news about Aubameyang. No matter what's happened at Arsenal and any of the kind of things that went on, that's regardless, as we've talked about with a number of topics. We wish him the absolute best and a swift recovery after an awful situation. And we hope his family are okay as well. Terrible, terrible situation that went on with him recently. Aaron says, hi, Tom. Do you think we're too short in midfield? I like Danilo and Tielemans. I think in the grand scheme of things, we're probably short of a deeper midfielder and potentially a left 8. That said, I really like what we're seeing from Xhaka. I think we've got to see more from Fabio Vieira, who could potentially play there. I think that Smith Rowe's got potential to play there as well. And Zinchenko, we've got players who are versatile enough to give us those, but it does feel like, that at least one more midfield signing is a necessity to cover both those two positions. If you haven't already, by the way, dropped a like on today's video, make sure you do. I think it might be worth dropping a poll into the chat box regarding how many players you think we're going to sign today. It's always good getting people's engaging how optimistic people are. So let's drop a poll into the chat. How many players? Why is my caps lock not working? How many players will Arsenal sign today? Question 0, 1, or 2. That's your options. I don't think any more than 2 is realistic. So let's see what you guys are going to vote for. How many players will Arsenal sign today? 0, 1, or 2. Get voting in that poll in the chat box. Ramsey says, is £30 million for Douglas Luiz a fair price? I think that's probably not a fair price. He's got 1 year left on his deal. I don't think I'd pay more than 20 for Douglas Luiz at this stage. Scrolling down a little bit more, VDub says, what's up with the referee last night? There was probably 2 red cards and a penalty and a disallowed goal. Make it make sense. I can make it make sense for you. They're not very good. It's as simple as that. The refereeing in this country is just not very good at all. Faisal says, do you think this is the last window we will spend more than 100 million? If it is, it's not necessarily a bad thing. And the reason for that is because when your squad gets to a certain stage, you only need to exchange or upgrade on 1 or 2 positions. You shouldn't be spending 150 million pounds every summer. You look at what Manchester City and Liverpool do, they might spend around 100 million, but it's only going to be on 1 or 2 players. I mean, if I look at the Premier League, all transfers over on transfer marks, let's have a quick check on that. We have a look at the table and we have a look at what's been spent by teams. If we go to Manchester City, this summer, Manchester City have spent just over 100 million, so around that 100 million mark on Haaland, Calvin Phillips, and Sergio Gomez. They obviously, I think, had an agreement in place with Julian Alvarez back in something like January, so they did that last season. But they've spent over just around 100 million quid, adding a brilliant striker, a really strong central midfielder, and a backup left back. 2 key signings for the starting 11, Haaland and Phillips. That's what they've done. And Phillips isn't even starting at the moment. Rodrigo's still there. So that's the position that Arsenal kind of need to be in. So just because we don't go and spend over 100 million from now on, it doesn't mean that we do that. And also what you have to look at is what the sales that they've done. They've sold Jesus, they've sold Sterling, they've sold Zinchenko, they've sold Pedro Porro and Itakura and Mudryk. And they've made 143 million. They've actually made profit in a window that they've added Haaland and Calvin Phillips to. That's where we need to be. We need to be in that kind of area. Whereas you look at someone like, I don't know, Manchester United, a team that are in a complete rebuild, they've spent over 200 million quid on players. 240 million pounds spent on Anthony, Casemiro, Alessandro Martinez, and Tyrell Malacia, and Christian Eriksen on a free, of course. That's because they are in a chaotic period where they're trying to rebuild. If we go to Liverpool, again, another team that haven't had the best of starts this season, they've signed 3 players, Darwin Nunez, Fabio Carvalho, Calvin Ramsey, and they've spent, according to Transfermarkt, around 77 million pounds, which I thought Nunez went for a lot more than that, but apparently not. They've only spent that much. And that's because their starting 11 is still, when everyone's fit, of course, they've got a bit of an injury crisis at the moment, but is really strong. And we don't need to be spending over £100 million every single summer. We need to be in a position where we're adding 2 players to the starting 11, if we can, 1 or 2, and then potentially, depth options as well. And then selling a lot better. That's where this Arsenal team needs to get to be in the same kind of, realms of these teams. But the thing is, we've had to spend 150 million last summer. We've had to spend over 100 and whatever million this summer because we've needed to add that significant number of players once again to the squad. Fortunately, I say fortunately, but, someone like William Saliba, coming back has been a big, big positive for us. We gained like a £30 million defender in a summer that we obviously already had him, but because he spent time out on loan, and we really feel now the benefit of that investment of previous years. We might feel the benefit of Nuno Tavares next season. He's having a brilliant start to the campaign with Marseille. And we might feel the benefit of him financially if, we want to keep Tierney, if we want to keep Alexander Zinchenko and he wants to move on. He's got 3 years left on his contract after a brilliant season with Marseille. We should be demanding upwards of £20 million, in my view, for someone like Nuno Tavares. So, it's about making sure that you build the squad in the right way and are able to sell players better than ever before. Vanajuti says, if we don't sign anyone else today, it's inevitable Edu and Arteta will get the flack. But does the blame rest with the executive board and the Cronkies because Mikel would want signings? I think it will rest with Edu. I think that there's an element of you've had a plan in place for a significant amount of time. If you aren't able to get in all the positions, you have to ask why. We've spent money. Money is available, not to the extent that some people have you believe. Like, one of the biggest misconceptions is, well, if we were going to spend 60 million quid on Rafinha, surely we could spend 50 million pounds on Neto. No. Reality was we were never going anywhere near 60 million for Rafinha. We were never going anywhere near 60 million for Martinez. We weren't really willing to go over 40 million pounds for either player. So don't get drawn into these false narratives that aren't true. What you need to realize is that clearly there is kind of a restriction on what we can do. We've spent 34 on Fabio, we've spent 45 on Gabriel, we've spent 30 on Alexander Zinchenko. We're hopefully not done. Hopefully we can see more come in. We've obviously bought Marquinhos on Turner as well for a combined 10 odd million quid as well. So we need to make sure that we are spending smartly. We're not overpaying for players. But I think there's opportunities in the market that we potentially could have missed out on. I think we'll point fingers back to some of the players that moved on earlier in the window when we were focused on signing Zinchenko and Jesus. And I think there'll be opportunities today that if we miss out on them, we will potentially look back on with some form of, regret. I wouldn't be putting the finger at Arteta. It's very clear that he wants players. It's very clear that he knows. It's not like he's sitting in the press conference and going, I'm really happy with the squads and I don't think we need any more players. He's saying, whilst I am happy with what we've got, we need more firepower. We need more. We are short. And because of that, we need to make sure that we add it. And I can't be pointing the finger at Arteta because if we don't bring anyone in, that's Edu's job. That's what he has to do. That's what he's got to find. So fingers crossed we can find it. But I'm not necessarily pointing the fingers even at the owners or at Arteta. For me, it's about making sure that we've had the time to do deals and we've not necessarily done them yet. But we still have to find that or solve that problem of finding a player that's good enough to start, but then also happy to be a competitor and sit on the bench when players like Partey come back to full fitness. It's a fine balance. Let's scroll up a little bit more. Jasmine says, I'm rewatching the Brazil Olympics team in 2021 to particularly watch Bruno Guimaraes due to major links then. But Douglas Luiz was the one who impressed me much more. As I said, I think people are underrating Douglas Luiz. There was a lot of kind of, opposition to the idea of signing Douglas Luiz. He is a good player. Premier League experience, the Brazilian side of things means he, transitions into this team comfortably. I don't really know why there is a level of opposition to him as there seemingly is. Maybe we'll do a tactical breakdown if we end up signing him very soon. But interesting. But Danilo or Douglas Luiz, I'd be happy with either of those two coming in today. I just hope we get something done. Let's have a quick check on our poll. What did you vote for? How many players will Arsenal sign today? 25% of you have said 0. 48% of you have said 1. 27% have said 2. Wow, so 0 is actually the least picked option thus far. You're an optimistic bunch, and I like that. Let's go to Keenan says Danilo is going to ball out at the World Cup this year. I was kind of led to believe that he won't be involved in the Brazil squad. There was a feeling supposedly that the Brazil manager had already picked kind of who he was going to be taking, and Danilo wasn't part of that. that could change. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But I was led to believe that Danilo won't be part of the squad. Harrison says Douglas Luiz would be a brilliant signing. I'm concerned about our options if we had a Jesus type injury. We've seen how easily you can lose two players in the same position. Yeah, I agree. You know, this is why I wanted a wide player, someone who could cover in the middle. But I think suggestions of Arsenal needing to sign another striker are a little bit wide of the mark. There aren't many teams that have more than two natural strikers in their squad, bar perhaps a youth option. Arsenal have Jesus and Nketiah, two senior strikers. And then we've got players like Martinelli, like Vieira, who can cover in the middle if you ever needed to desperately. But beyond that, I think a wide player that could have played in the middle would have really helped us out this window. But because of the injuries, we look like we might be missing out on that rather frustratingly. Neil says, Tom, if we spend 20 million more, it will help us to achieve top four. Is it not worth spending? I mean, anything we spend to invest is obviously going to help us try and achieve top four. But I think the current squad that we have, Neil, is good enough to reach the top four. The current squad that we have available is definitely good enough. The problem is obviously the injuries. And we can all sit there and say, well, let's cover those injuries by signing players. But we should never sign for the sake of signing. If we sit there and say, yeah, Douglas Luiz for 20 million, but what if Aston Villa turn around and go, no, we want 30. No, we want 40. What if Palmeiras say, no, we want 30. No, we want 40. We don't want to sell for 20 million. What if that happens? That's the problem. So it's not as simple as going, well, if 20 million gets you top four, great, do it. Absolutely, I'm on board with you. But that isn't the reality. And we can't just sit there and assume that 20 million is what they will be asking for or what we can get him for. We don't know. And that's the problem, is what we don't know is our biggest vice in these kind of discussions. Alves says, time for Mikel to move fast. Again, it's not about Mikel. It's about Edu and the boards. Mikel has said what he wants. Mikel knows he needs signings. It's not about Mikel. It's about Edu. It's about the boards getting what we need in the door. Brotherhood says, Tom, we have a chance to win the league. But the reason why I laugh is because we're 5 games in. Yes, we've won those 5 games. But we've played Palace, we've played Fulham, we've played Leicester, we've played Bournemouth, and we've played Villa. And on paper, we should beat those 5 teams. I know Crystal Palace away is a tough game. Fulham look a really good team this season. I'm sure Leicester eventually will turn around and take points off people. Bournemouth might not. They look like they're terrible. And who knows? Aston Villa could turn things around after a poor start to the season, take points off people. But we should beat those 5 teams. On paper, we should beat those 5 teams. No one went into any of those games and gone, I don't think we can win here. We went into those 5 games thinking we can win. We are going to face tests. We are going to face tougher tests than we have faced so far this season. So I'm not talking about titles. I'm just not doing it because it's silly. There's no point doing that at this stage. I don't want to say we have a chance of winning the league because realistically, we don't. City are unreal. Absolutely unreal at the moment. Blowing teams away with ease, that other teams are struggling against. Spurs struggled to beat Villa, and they look like the 3rd best team in the league right now behind ourselves and City. And City blew them away with at a canter. So I'm not going to start talking about title races, mate. And I'm not going to say no one should turn around and be going, if we'd assigned a midfielder or a wide forward, we could have won the title. No, it's just you can't turn around and you can't have it both ways. You can't turn around and say if we'd assigned someone, we could have gone for the title, and then go, oh, well, this Arsenal team weren't even good enough for top 4 last season. It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. So, yeah, let's not use contradictions. VDub says, Tom, what's your thoughts on Man United next? Casemiro and Anthony, who do we play against them? I would play similar to what we've played so far. Odegaard needs to hopefully be fit. Maybe we bring in a player that can play in the defensive mid role, but I think Lokonga had a really good game against Villa. I would probably start the same team again against Man United, and we might need to make more changes, but we've obviously got the game against Zurich where we're going to make a lot of changes, so we've got an opportunity, I still think, to play the same team once again. Hopefully Odegaard is going to be back and fit for that. But yeah, I do think that just keep it consistent, keep it going. If we get into the Champions League, people forget that we're going to need to play our best players twice a week. So just because we've got 3 games in a week doesn't mean that we then rotate everybody. Because when we get back into that Champions League, fingers crossed, that's what we're going to need to do every single game anyway, and every single week. So let's wait and see. Alan says, do you think Mings' foul on Saka is a penalty? I think that the shirt pull going into the box was a penalty, and I think that then it was made worse by what happened with Mings. So yes, I would have given a penalty for that, but I am probably biased. Jasmeet says, Tielemans for 25 million could surely be our answer to TP5 and Granit's role. No, he's not a 6. I don't think I'd play Tielemans in the deep midfield role at all. I'd play him where Xhaka plays, sure, but he doesn't start above Xhaka right now. Doesn't start above him at all. Whereas players like Danilo and Luiz, I think, potentially start for us whilst Partey is out, and when Partey eventually is out again at some point during the season. So that's why I lean towards more of a Danilo Luiz over a Tielemans. I might be wrong to think that, but I personally lean towards those two profiles over Tielemans right now. We are going to wrap things up there. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I'm going to do another show before my shift starts at 4, probably around 3 o'clock. It might be a phone-in show. It might not. We'll see how the day kind of plays out. We'll see what's happening around this afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. Do drop a like before you go. It really, really does help us out. There's over 1,500 of you watching. Thank you for the support across the whole of the transfer window. I will be back with you tomorrow morning with another 8 a.m. show. And the 8 a.m. shows won't stop once the deadline day finishes. We turn it into the Arsenal news show. We'll continue to bring you morning shows and update you with everything that's going on in the world of Arsenal. I look forward to seeing plenty of you hopefully tomorrow at our live show in the evening. You can still buy tickets. Link to how you can buy tickets is in the description. Come chat transfers, come chat title races, come talk top 4, come talk Arsenal. Some fantastic guests are going to be there. James Benge, FK from Latte Firm, Harry Simew, Sophie Nicolau, all in North London at the Ridley Road Social Club tomorrow evening. Go to the link in the description to buy tickets. I will see you very, very soon. Have a fantastic deadline day. And as always, up the Arsenal.